Hello and welcome to My Baking Journey, a podcast for bakers where you get to hear from some of the great minds in the baking industry. My name is Haf.
And my name is Rachel. I'm a baker. I know what it's like to be baking all day alone in my kitchen, experiencing the frustrations and struggles with no one else to guide or support me through it.
And I'm not a baker, but I've witnessed all the ups and downs that come with this industry and where it's hard to get a little bit of extra help.
So if you're looking for advice, tips, and amazing insight from various experienced bakers, you've come to the right place.
So let's give you a little insight into what's in store for you this week.
No one kind of tells you the ins and outs of this. I didn't sell anything for about 6 months. I didn't settle for, like, my buttercream recipe, for example. I did not settle for it not being right. Every time I made something, I was like, no, that can be better. No, that can be better. And then I kept doing it. I was never happy with what it was until just like a light switch went off. It was a 2-tier I'd made. It was a green marble one. It was like a dark green on the top and a marble on the bottom. And I said, I reckon I can throw this.
Harry, thank you so much for coming on this podcast. I'll tell you what, Rach and I, we've been really looking forward to this. A couple of reasons. You're the first male baker that we've got on, obviously, in our group of not just ambassadors who work with OLBAA, but just in terms of having somebody to interview, which is very cool.
That's surprising.
Are you surprised, really?
That surprises me, yes.
Well, you're a bit of a legend. You've done something that very few other male bakers have been able to do in a very short period of time.
Hasn't been that long, yeah.
What did you say? You started in December 2020?
That's the one, yeah.
So first question then, naturally for me, is I gravitate to you a bit because I'm a bit of an engineer mind. And you are an aircraft engineer by day. So how the hell does an aircraft engineer decide to start baking? I mean, I'm just not connecting the dots. You've got to help me.
Yes, that is the funny one, isn't it? So COVID hit in 2020.
Right.
And airline industry all went a bit crazy. So my wife was pregnant at the time and obviously expecting a little Rio. And we wanted to, the whole furlough thing was happening. And I said, well, all right, if they needed people to go on furlough. And I went, I'll do it because I'll be at home with my wife. She's pregnant. We've got Rio coming. We can get set up for the baby coming. It'll be great. But amongst all that, there was this fear that I was going to lose my job. Like the airlines were just going to crash and that was going to be game over for all of the airlines. So I thought I'd just try doing something else in that time and see how it would go, really. And I didn't really know what would happen with it. It was just a bit of fun. And then people started ordering cake and people started going, oh, actually, these are looking quite good.
Hang on. Just go back one step for me, though. So, but were there other things on this list of things to try, or did you just naturally gravitate to baking? I mean, you've obviously must have baked at some point in your life, or not?
Not really. Well, no. During COVID, I'd maybe made a Victoria sponge and like a chocolate cake. But no, I hadn't baked before. I wanted to try it out, and it was the first thing on the list to try out. And in fact, it was the only thing on the list, to be honest, at that point.
So Harry, just a question. So your mum or your grandma or no one, a sister or a brother had never baked previously that you'd grown up with, or?
My mum is a chef.
Light bulb moment.
There we go.
My mum is a chef, yes. So, I don't know, I thought it'd be fun. I like cooking a lot. I cook a lot of the time. And I thought it would just be something good to do. I never thought it would actually become a thing, like it is now. That was never my plan. I just, little bit at a time, people started ordering. People wanted weddings and things. I thought, this is crazy. And then Instagram started blowing up. It was never a plan to make Instagram to do that as part of this job either. And people just started following and asking for cake, and it was a bit of fun, really, and then turned into what it is now.
So was it essentially like a hobby to begin with?
Yeah, it was a long time, actually. It was a hobby, maybe like 6-7 months. It was a hobby, really. No, I just made for like my friends and my family and stuff. And then I thought, you know what, I might get registered and do all those bits, and started actually taking on some real orders. Did you have any prior business experience at this point? Nothing, no. And actually, I still struggle with that side of it. That's really hard to do amongst all this, to get your head around, how much can I take on, and like spreadsheets and doing all that bit. I don't do any of that. My wife does all that.
You've got the help, I suppose.
Yeah.
So then we've been going now for, say, December 2020. So you're not even 18 months into this journey.
No.
And what I find amazing about this is, we got a tip to work with you as an ambassador from somebody called Joe's Bakes.
Yes.
And he just pinged us one day and he said, you need to go see this guy and pick him up as an ambassador. I think back then you maybe only had around 4,000 followers. Okay, so that's a lot for many bakers. But for you, that was very fresh, early days, right? And we just thought, okay, well, this is interesting. Well, let's just approach him and see what happens. And we'd never, ever done that before with an ambassador. And I thought it'd be nice to talk to you about being an ambassador in general, not just with us, but in general. But we just thought this was a really interesting, opportune moment for us to work with somebody completely different who didn't have a lot of experience, but is obviously trying to come in and make their mark. Obviously looks like they're having loads of fun doing it.
Yes.
And I thought maybe you can just give us go back to that first few months for you and tell us about the experience and the ups and the downs, or where it went for you and your wife as of course, Rio arrives during this whole process.
Yeah, so actually, Rio was probably coming in around that time where I started speaking to you guys, and there was a couple other things happening in the pipeline. And it was people like Joe, actually, that kind of pushed me to do it, really. I'd never really heard of anything like that before. It was just, he kind of said to me, work with some people and, like, you kind of help each other out, like make some content and you get some supplies paid for, it's sort of like a hand-in-hand thing. And I was like, I've never heard of anything like this before. What's this all about? So he was like, I know someone. And then he just sent you guys a message. I didn't even clear it by me. He just sort of went,
oh, really?
Yeah, that's the thing, Joe. He's brilliant. He just 0 to 100. Like, that's it, right? I'm doing this. Nice guy. Really nice guy.
Fantastic.
How have you found that experience being you could probably just talk from our perspective. I don't want you to talk about anything that you're uncomfortable with, but just working with brands in general, because I think there's probably a lot of mystery around for other bakers. Like, what does it involve, and what do you have to do, and how do you get approached to do these types of things? And I'd love for you to share a little bit.
Of course, yeah. So this is an interesting one because no one kind of tells you the ins and outs of this. So I've had some very different experiences with this. It actually quite recently as well. So this has kind of been mostly really good for me, especially with you guys. Speaking to a lot of bakers, myself included, there's a lot of pressure from a lot of brands constantly keep up with content. And a lot of people forget that we aren't being paid to do this. A lot of people anyway. And I felt a lot of pressure very recently anyway. You kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about, that this pressure can get too much and people can kind of get a bit on your back about it. And I've kind of had to leave certain people and gone, right, you know what? I'm in this for a bit of fun at the moment. I'll help you, you help me. I don't want too much pressure with this. And that was with you guys. Straight off the bat, you kind of went, no pressure to kind of do anything, just here and there. Maybe like a video here and there, and then that's it, we're good. That's exactly what you told me when we first did that message. One of the things that stuck with me is no one has said that.
He's not a content creator, is he, Rach? I mean, you're a baker. You're doing this as a baker. You're not doing this as a content creator.
Yeah.
So this has of your stuff to do in a day. Like if I went to Rach, because she has to create all kinds of content for us, right?
Yeah.
And if I said to her, Rach, I need content in one of our cupcake boxes because I've got to shoot it for product shots for so-and-so.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, her mind is just like, okay, where am I going to fit this in?
Yeah.
My day of everything else I have to do.
Especially short notice. That happens often as well. And it's meant to be good for everyone. And it is. I'm making it sound like it's not. So actually, it's brilliant. Like 9 times out of 10, all of this stuff. Everyone's brilliant. Every brand I work with, you guys, I work with people like Colour Mill who are awesome, Super Streusel, they're brilliant people. Everyone's great. Some not so though. Some put a lot of pressure for you to make content. And I kind of asked a couple of questions before, a bit like, okay, my time is quite valuable to me at the moment. What am I actually getting out of this? And I went, well, nothing. I'm just going to give you this free thing. I was like, oh, well, I don't really want it. And they go, oh, well, you have to. And really have to do anything. See you later.
I think that's the really difficult part. I think when you're a baker yourself, you kind of understand how many hours go into creating this kind of content. And I know particularly for us from an OLBAA perspective, for me, it should be very organic. It should be people who really want to use our brand anyway.
Yes.
And it should be a very natural fit of whatever they're coming up with. And perhaps because we're lucky in a sense that we do create a lot of content ourselves.
Yeah, those cakes are incredible. They need to get more credit than they get.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
Thanks, Harry.
Try telling our kids that, mate.
Yeah.
They're so immune now. They're like, go look at the cake in the fridge.
Oh, really?
It's just they, after a few, maybe 100 now by this point, it's like, oh, okay.
I'll send them my way. I'll have some.
Yeah, all right.
So an interesting journey, I guess, both being an ambassador for brands. And I think that's perhaps something that our listeners can think about as, is that something that they really want or they want to go towards? Because there's a lot of work involved in it as well, of like keeping up and making sure that there is content being produced and there is a level of loyalty, etc., to that brand.
The only advice I would give is just look after yourself first. And all this stuff, it has to go hand in hand. Obviously, you're working with people. It is a hand in hand thing. You can't just go, I'm working with you and do nothing. It is a hand in hand thing. You have to commit if you're going to do that. But look after yourself first. Always look after yourself. People start hounding you, go, you know what, maybe this isn't for me.
And what advice could you say for people who are looking to get into brands? Should they go out and approach? Should they try and curtail their content in a way that sort of aligns with a certain brand? Like, what things could you suggest here that might help that side of it, the really beginning stages?
Both are really good. So if you find yourself using something often, just do a few posts, see how well they do, and specifically name these brands that you use often. And they might see it, they might not, you never know. But if you use something so often, it's worth trying to do a little push. That's what I did with people, like Colour Mill, massive people. I just started posting loads and loads of Colour Mill content because that's all I use. And I thought, these would be cool. And it's hard for companies like that, massive people, and sent a few DMs. I didn't really get anything back because imagine the amount of messages someone like that gets, and that's understandable. So I just started making loads of Colour Mill content, putting it out there, and eventually I got a message saying, do I want to work with them? That works. So a bit of a long-winded way. That is a long-winded way. A lot of the time, just if you want to work with someone, just send them a message. Mm-hmm. All that's going to happen is you get a no. It is worth it. And a lot of the time people aren't looking for anyone. They may have people already, and it's a lot on the brand side as well to manage so many people. So worth a try. You may have to wait a few months. You may have to wait a year. You never know. Just give it a go.
Well, you could also say that don't necessarily have to aim so high for these top tier brands.
Mm-hmm.
You could go to a baking supply store. You could go to a cake school. You could go to a bakery. I mean, someone who makes custom toppers, who's small and independent. There's loads of people you can approach who probably it wasn't on their radar at first until someone approached them and said, look, this is the kind of work I do. I'd love to work with you on that. I mean, Rachel can tell you too, we get the requests all the time and we'd love to work with every request that comes in. It's a lot of work to manage, obviously, and sending out samples to everyone and making sure everyone's on top of what they need. And, there's a lot of extra work involved, but it's worth it in the end for sure.
Yeah. That's it. So when I first started, I'm probably talking maybe the first month or two, I started buying toppers from, a very small brand. And at the time, they were really small. Now they're not so much. Since right at the start, the same people, that's the only people I use, because it doesn't matter how big you are. These people are still relatively small.
You're allowed to share them if you'd like. It's okay.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, so Yorkshire Toppers Co.
Give them a plug.
And they are absolutely brilliant, right? So because right at the start, and I am the worst person when it comes to toppers, right? I'm surprised they haven't dropped me ages ago. I'm that guy that goes, oh no, I forgot I've got this one next week. What can you do for me? That's me. So, and every single time they go, yeah, cool, no worries. We'll do that now and we'll send it on next day. Every single time. And that's what's good about what, you can have these massive, massive companies, but you're absolutely right when you say, why not aim a bit smaller? Because turns out they're one of the best people you can get. Sort me out every time. So yeah, that's a good thing actually. Try not to aim so high to like the top brand, because you can get smaller ones that sometimes even better.
Yeah.
Harry, can I go back a little bit and talk about your journey again, and just
Absolutely.
going into, because what I find really amazing is that you started this in December 2020, just before the arrival of little Rio.
Yes.
And for me, the standard that you're up to now is pretty remarkable, considering that you have a full-time job and you have a little baby. So you're juggling lots of things, and you have a life outside of that as well, right?
A little bit.
So what I want to understand is like, what fed that obsession to get to such a high standard? Is that part of your character, or is it something that just was magic when it came to cakes?
I wouldn't say I pushed to get sort of high, like a lot of Instagram followers, you could say. I wouldn't say I pushed for that. I'd say once I found something that started working, I played on that a bit. So once I started showing my face a bit more on my page rather than just posting cakes, that worked really well. People want to see who's behind doing this. That's what the impression I got anyway. And started throwing cakes. That was basically the two things that started pushing my Instagram page. So I just kept doing it. And I think Reels are a big help as well. Instagram's changing, and I know it's a bit of a sore subject sometimes with people with Reels, and it should be photos, but it is the way I grew my brand from making Reels. So if it works, it works. And throwing cakes, that helps.
And your skill set, particularly too, is something I think we'd be quite interested to understand, because you've been able to now develop, bake, and perfect your skills in a very short period of time. And so what do you think, beyond obviously the obvious thing being practice here, what other things have you done to help get yourself to a level where you are more confident to go and sell these cakes, price them effectively, and so on and so forth?
Okay, yeah. So I think what's helpful with that is when I say I didn't sell anything for about 6 months, I didn't settle for, like my buttercream recipe, for example, I did not settle for it not being right. And I wasted so much icing. Like I was just chucking bits here and there, trying bits that no one said to put in here. And obviously I've done it. I've gone, well, that's why you don't put that in there. I spent ages getting this buttercream recipe right. And it really, really is about just taking your time and getting that recipe. And a lot of people, I think, go, oh, I'm going to be a home baker now, knock up a cake and go, okay, right, I'm going to sell it. It really was about just taking my time with it and getting it just right. And I know people can't do that a lot of the time. People don't have 6 months on furlough to go, oh, I've got all the time in the world to get this right. But once I got it, it was great. Just need to get the time to do it. I think that was really helpful. Once I found that buttercream recipe for me that worked really well, it helped me make these cakes that actually seem to be making me do well here.
Yeah, for me, that the standard of cakes that you are putting out there, beyond your hooks of throwing the cakes in the air, beyond like you being on Instagram, what I find is like really unique is like the journey that you've gone on. So most bakers, it takes several years to get to that standard, and they may never get to that standard. For me, it's an obsession. Like, did you get really obsessed in it? Did you get like, where does that come from? Are you a bit like that in your personality as well? Do you have to perfect something, or?
No, actually not. No, that's not me at all. I think I'm really not a perfectionist. I'm quite a half-hearted person, actually. I'll probably go, oh yeah, that'll do a lot of the time. But I just got this obsession with this cake business, and I thought every time I made something, I was like, no, that can be better. No, that can be better. And then I kept doing it. I was never happy with what it was until just like a light switch went off, and that buttercream recipe was perfect. And it just became like, okay, right, I can do this now. Cool. So yeah, I think that really isn't me. So that I'm quite relaxed. I'm quite, oh yeah, I'll just do that. It'd be fine. But this, yes, it did become an obsession. Yeah, it's a strange one, actually, that.
Yeah, interesting.
Hey, sorry to interrupt, but I have to ask. You're about to go bake a cake, right? A really nice tall cake with some beautiful decorations on top, maybe some dried blooms, lovely toppers. What are you going to box that in when you give it to the customer? Please don't tell me you're going to have to put some extenders on and staple it to a standard box and then wrap the thing in plastic and give that to somebody, hoping for the best. I have a better idea. Why don't you look at OLBAA tall cake boxes? 14 or 20 inches tall, they're gorgeous and strong. You can put them together in just a minute. Just amazing. You'll find them a game changer as a baker. Check them out, www.olbaa.shop. All right, let's get back to the show.
As an aircraft engineer, though, during the day, when I think of, gosh, if you were to apply some kind of stereotype to an aircraft engineer, I don't know. I would assume you would be a little bit nerdy, into the mathematics of it, the engineering facets of it. You wouldn't necessarily be so extroverted. Of course, I'm massively stereotyping here, but I guess what I'm getting at is your social media strategy has worked very well for you. And one of the things you alluded to was that you had to put your face out there. For you yourself, that worked really well.
Yeah.
But as in your day job, it's a role that doesn't necessarily require so much of this public, visual. You're behind the scenes, right? Fixing these planes.
Yeah.
So was that a hard transition for you to make, to put yourself up there in front? Or did you just sort of roll with it and just took a very relaxed attitude?
Just rolled with it, really. I'd never really put my face out there. It was by chance I did it for a couple of posts and they did really, really well. And then Reels became a thing, I think. I mean, Reels have always been a thing, but I think mid to late last year, I think it was really, really kicking off, Reels. And everyone was saying, Instagram's only pushing Reels. And all within the space of a month or two, I started putting my face out, throwing cakes and making Reels. And it was just seemed to work. But in terms of the daytime job, it's like today I spent 12 hours in a fuel tank, absolutely covered from head to toe, completely horrible. I tried to scrub it all out. I can smell it now. I can smell it while I'm sitting here. It's never coming out. And then come home to do that, it just is completely different.
Who gave you the idea to throw cakes?
I wanted to do something different. And we just sort of sat here and went, I'm just going to throw it, see if it will go. Actually, it was a 2-tier I'd made that had like a marble. It was a green marble one. It was like a dark green on the top and a marble on the bottom. And I said, I reckon I can throw this. And that was how it started. And it was heavy. And I couldn't throw it. I threw it. It left my hand for like a 1/4 inch. And that was it. And I thought, okay, well, let's give that a go. And I posted the thing. It did really, really well. I thought, all right, I'll do the next one. Threw it really high. And it just became a thing from there. And now I can't stop. And the day I drop one is going to be a really sad day.
I was just about to jump in there, Harry, and say, well, first of all, that it makes me extremely anxious every time you throw that cake in the air. And I think probably makes every baker or even a non-baker really anxious throwing that cake in the air, because we all know how many hours go into that cake.
Yes.
But I was going to ask you, have you ever dropped one? And obviously you just answered my question.
I've done some very bad throws before and I've lost a few toppings, but no cake drop, no.
I think I saw one yesterday or today that you threw that went really high.
Yes.
Scarily high.
I had a bit of room though. I had about 6 inches from the ceiling, so I've got a bit more I can get.
Goodness me. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. So, okay, you've got the social aspect nailed. I mean, you've really accelerated. Your TikTok's been doing really well. Your lives have been going really well.
Oh, you watched them? Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us a bit about the lives here. Like, you're out there baking, you're live streaming it, people are chatting with you. Is it another thing that you seem to be quite good at this? You kind of just roll with the flow and see where it goes.
Again, I'm just quite relaxed with it all. I don't really... So people see doing a live cake decorating as, the pressure would be too much. Actually, I don't really feel any pressure with anything, really. I'm just quite chilled out. So just started doing it. And it really, really helped push. I didn't really understand TikTok. No one really understands TikTok. It's impossible. There's no rhyme or reason for their algorithm. I can post a video that get 10 views. I can post one that will get 100,000 views. Doesn't make any sense.
I'm sure there are a lot of people nodding their heads right now.
Yes. So no one understands it, basically. So all that seemed to work for me on TikTok was doing lives. I'd do a live and 5,000 followers would happen. And I think, okay, well, I'm just going to decorate this cake anyway. I might as well do it and people will just sit and watch it. And I was shocked the amount of people that actually watch this stuff. And ask questions, really good opportunity to ask questions to people while you're doing it and get a lot of trolls as well. That's always fun. people going, "You've ruined that cake now, I'm leaving." I'm like, oh no, okay.
Yeah, I was going to ask you there, Harry, because I think that's one of the things that I was wondering about on the TikTok lives. Do you get a lot of negatives like coming on there, or
Loads of negatives? Yeah. It doesn't outweigh the good, but people, and I quite like it. Anything. The thing is, with TikTok, the more comments and interactions you get on a live, the more people it pushes it to. And I know it doesn't sound like the right way to do it, but when a troll comes along and goes, "Oh, I've just seen a mouse run past your kitchen," right? And all the comments come in and go, "Someone ban the troll, someone get rid of him. What are you talking about? This is," and I'm like, great, another 100 people just added to the live viewing. So that's brilliant because the conversation started. I mean, obviously I've got a couple of admins that do remove. There are some really, really bad trolls that will go on there and say some horrible things. But most of the time it's someone going, "Why would you be a cake maker? That's a horrible job." And it just starts a massive conversation. And I think, oh, why would you say that?
Brilliant.
how do you manage that, Harry? Because you tend to do it late at night. I know I've dropped into one of your lives, and I think it's quite late for me anyway, but it's usually around like 11 at night or something. You're decorating 3 cakes for the night, and you're trying to look on your monitor and make sure Rio doesn't wake up. And
Yep. So it tends to be like my house is carnage in the day. Baby running around. Like Rio is a whole other level of excited. So he's running around everywhere. Or I work during the day, or we've got plans or whatnot. So it was a bit of a mixture of evening just tends to be a time of just everyone seems to be relaxed. Baby's in bed, and I can just do this then. But it was also, I trialed loads of different times in the day for TikTok. And late at night gets way more traction than during the day. So I don't know whether it's anything to do with TikTok gets shown to everyone all over the world. Everyone sees it. It's a bit of a difference with Instagram. It will just show your followers. So maybe it's things like in the States, because I get a lot of American people watching. In fact, most of it is people from America. And it seemed to do really, really well late at night. I've done one recently during the day, and it was like 10% of the viewers that I normally get. It's a massive difference. It could be different for everyone, but late at night for me worked well. So that's all I'm going to do now with TikTok Live.
Yeah, you're like a late night TV show, right?
Yeah, everyone's in bed going, "Oh, this guy's on again, right? Okay, stick him on."
So back to the business side of things, you've been very good at the social aspect, but you've admitted already that you've struggled on the business side of things. What areas have you found it to be quite challenging, and what are you doing to try and get around those issues?
So a big part of this is I want to do this full time. The whole thing now is about, right, how do I make Harry Bakes a full-time job? It has to pay the mortgage. It has to do everything, really. It has to do what my current job is doing. And I wouldn't leave my current job because staff travel is brilliant. I get free flights. So I'd go part-time with that, do 2 days a week and do full-time cakes. That'd be great. What I'm struggling with is time management with it. Like, how do I get 10 cake orders in a week and have the time to do that?
Mm-hmm.
So at the moment, it just looks impossible with full-time job, with the baby, we were just moving house. It just didn't really seem like it could happen. But everything seems to be falling into place now for it to actually work. Like I have a kitchen now. So before I was working in this much space. That was my worktop.
I think we remember seeing videos. Yeah.
So before it was just like a dream, and now it seems like actually this could work. So what I'm struggling with business side is visualizing it being a full-time job, and all the little pieces kind of seem to be falling into place right now. Now I need to go, right. My wife Harriet says it to me all the time, like, right, we've got everything in place now, so let's get the orders in. And I'm kind of sitting and going, oh yeah, but what if it doesn't work? And I've just got this fear that actually I'm not ready to make it full time yet. And I just need to kind of go, right, the 100 messages I've got sitting there going, right, can I have this cake? Needs to just go, yes, 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 yes. Not, oh no, I'm busy. Just take it all on, see what happens. Worst case scenario is next month I'll go, right, that was too much. So yeah, managing the time, that's the hard bit for me. That's getting the headspace to go, right, just take it on, get the time. Now it's all in place and just do it.
I mean, it's a full-time job in its own right anyway, being a baker, because there's so many elements that you have to do. There's not just the cake baking, there's the buttercream, there's all the additional elements if you're putting macarons or cakesicles or chocolate shards or anything on. All these elements take time, right? That unless you're just going to swirl out a really basic recipe and or format that you're going to do. So I think at the minute you have a full-time job and you also are baking and you're also producing content. So let's not disregard how long that takes to do as well. There's photographing it, there's editing it, there's producing, there's social media.
That's outrageous. 6 hours a day screen time is not right, is it?
Right, it's an ugly reminder of your life, right?
So what I'm trying to say, Harry, is that your life is very full. So like even juggling a little bit of that is hard, right? So it's almost like you're probably going to have to get to a stage where you are committed to go more than like a weekend, or give up more of your free time if you're willing to do that, or take a day off. Say I'll go down to 4 days a week, and then at least I've got like that 3-day weekend to really hammer it when most cake orders come in, right?
The weekends are the key. Yeah, that's the one.
Do you do a lot of planning ahead of time where you can bake and freeze, or make your buttercream ahead of time and freeze, or keep it cool so that you've got it ready and like time block certain things? We've heard strategies from other bakers doing things like that.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you employ any of that.
Again, I've not done many cake orders. In the grand scheme of things, the time I've been doing it's not been that long, but actually in the time I've done this, it's not actually been that many cake orders. I do a lot of content stuff.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of things about like bulk baking and like freezing and like doing big batches of things and then waiting for it. All I do at the moment is say I've got lots of cake, most of my stuff's content at the moment, but if I've got a lot to do in the week, start of the week, whether it's the start of my week because I do shifts, is Wednesday or Sunday or whatever it is, I would make 2 massive batches of icing. Like I'm talking like huge batches, and it goes in the fridge. And then I'm ready to just kind of bake and then decorate. Because I've not figured out, I know a lot of people say, I've not figured out the time frame for baking a cake, freezing it, and it still be good. I've not got there yet. And I know people have, but I do know that my buttercream, I can make it and it will last ages and it will still be good. It's just sugar and butter, isn't it? Like, and a couple other bits. But...
Right. Well, it's refreshing actually to hear it, because there'll be a lot of people listening to this who will be just starting out. You know, they'll be behind you in terms of where you're at in your journey, and whether they pick up something from that or not, I think there's still a nice sort of thing to relate to here, is that you're still new to this and you're still learning, and this is part of the journey. It's not all set in stone quickly and easily, and it takes time to formulate it in a way that fits your life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the bake, if anyone wants to tell me, please get into my DMs, because I love the cakes I make. I think, especially my cupcakes, I'll never change that. But I am still tinkering with my actual cake recipe, even though I'm happy with it. If someone can kind of tell me if there's something I need to do to make this last longer, or if we can batch freeze, I don't know. I've never tried it. All I have done is, so I make content cakes, right? So I'll ice them and de-ice them sometimes and just reuse it for another cake. But I've taken one to work that's 2 weeks old, you know. I've decorated it a few times, took it to work. I said, I don't know what this cake's going to be like. This is a bit of a trial for me. I don't know how long these last. I tell all my customers, this cake is good for a week. Once it's iced, it's in your fridge, you don't cut it, it's all sealed in, and it will be the same in a week's time. But that's just from ones I've tried. So I took this 2-week-old one to work, cut it. This cake was going to feed 35 people, you know. My shift had it done by 6 hours. It was gone. And animals, right? And I didn't even see it go. I cut it up into all the bits, and they went, yeah, it was brilliant. It was lovely. And I thought, it would have been nice for a bit more feedback than that, or at least for me to try a bit. 2-week-old cake, everyone loved it.
I get where you're coming from though, Harry. I know when I started off making cakes, and also when even after I had like the health and safety people in, and there was still no clear guidelines on how long to keep something. So it wasn't like it's a black and white that you would get perhaps in other food industries. It was a little bit vague, and that's where you go and do lots of research on the internet. And obviously there's lots of opinions and people who've been doing it for years and what they come about. But there is no set black and white how long to keep or how long to do it for. And that vagueness can be interpreted very differently for everyone, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you can I suppose you just have to try it and see if it's okay. Because it's not like you can even go, right, here's all my ingredients. what's the closest use by date? That's going to be my date. You can't even just do that. It doesn't work like that.
No, I do get that struggle. One thing I have found with, I freeze all my macarons because I make in big batches and then I freeze them and then get them out as and when I want them. And typically they will last 2 to 3 months in the freezer. And I know where, in a sealed container, and I know when it's not so good anymore because they're quite soft. So even when they defrost, it's starting to disintegrate a bit. So I'm almost like that. I can't really stretch it much further than that 2.5, 3 month mark. But it makes it a lot easier for me to make those batches of macarons up front, and then I can just freeze them and bring them out as and when I'm decorating cakes, for example.
Yeah, I don't even know how you make them. I buy them in Tesco out the freezer. I've not even attempted them.
If you start, this comes with a warning. It is one heck of an experience. Just make sure that there's nothing breakable nearby in the kitchen, because there may be pans thrown or, bowls.
In fact, they're meant to be one of the hardest things to make, to get right anyway. Like, you can get them exploding in the oven. You can, they won't rise. Apparently you have to have super fine sugar or something. I don't know. I know nothing about them, but I just go Tesco, have a box for £4 in that freezer, in the basket.
Do you know what? At some point, you'll probably want to tackle it because it's like a baker's nemesis, right? To have a go at it. And I think it took me a good 50 attempts to get right. But it's just one of those things that you learn, as you were talking before, like how long the shelf life or how long to freeze things for. And I'm sure I'll get comments coming back to me about on the macarons, etc. But it is through trial and error, and it's definitely through tasting and seeing what tastes good. And I certainly freeze some of my cakes because it just makes that whole experience, just when you're short of time, to be able to have the cake already prepped and the icing's already prepped and you can just decorate them.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I use the freezer in the decorating process more than my fridge, so the freezer is so key in decorating because every stage it has to be so chilled to get sharp edges and have it straight and smooth. Everything revolves around that freezer. The fridge is not good enough in that. For me anyway, that's how I've learned it. It's just not good enough. And everyone's like, oh, you put them in the freezer. I'm like, I do put them in the freezer and decorating, but half hour here and there. And people kind of say, oh, but you shouldn't freeze them. I mean, I could leave it in there 6 hours or 6 days. It's not really going to make any difference to my cake. It's going to still be good. But I think there's this fear around the freezer, isn't there? There's this fear in the baking world that, it's going to make your cakes stale, it's going to make them dry. Once it's locked in that buttercream, or even if you cling film your cakes, it's fine. Nothing's going to happen to your cake in the freezer. It's quite happily sitting there nice and chilled. It likes it in there.
Yeah, it's true. All right, a bit of a change of gear here. Let's talk about something that a lot of people struggle with, that sometimes it's a tough topic: pricing. We don't have to get into exactly how much, but I would like to understand, because you are new to this. You just started really in the last, what would you say, year selling your cakes or less?
Yeah, I'd say about that, yeah.
How have you found pricing your cakes in your area for what you make? And what sort of feedback has it generated?
So, okay, like everyone's had to at the moment, prices have gone up quite a lot.
Yeah.
Because butter near enough doubled. Was it $2.50 a block now or something? At some places, it's madness. But before that, I kind of thought the biggest cost for me is my time. It has to be worth my time. Everyone can do all this stuff. And it goes, I'll loop it back to, I won't go too much into it, but it goes back to brands and stuff. Time is so valuable in all of this. You wouldn't go work at Tesco. You wouldn't go get your car fixed for free. Your time has to be your most valuable asset in all of this. Forget your ingredients, forget the cost of supplies, forget all of that. Find out an hourly wage you want. What do you want to be paid to make this cake? If you say £30 an hour, if you say £5 an hour, okay, right, how long does it take you to make that cake? I hear loads of people saying 4 hours. That cake's taken me 6 to make. There's no 4 in my life. It's 6 hours to make a cake. So I want to be paid my hourly wage that I think is right. So I add up all my ingredients, all my supplies, everything. That's all in there. And then I add the hourly wage I want. That's how long. And in fact, what I have done before is I've made a cake quick, and I've made a cake that's taken me ages. It's been complicated. It's been something new to try. Added that cost the cost of the cake, because essentially I'm working overtime or, I finished early. Value your time. That is the biggest thing with pricing your cakes. You have to give yourself a proper wage. I sound like I'm really going off on one, but it's been such a big subject for me. Like, a lot of people saying, I'm charging next to nothing for this cake. And I think that's what it's costing you in ingredients. And if you're charging £50 more than the local baker to make that cake, then that person is really underselling themselves. And I'd rather just not make it.
Yeah.
But actually, what I've been charging, people will pay it. If the cake's good enough, or you just say it how it is, people will buy your cakes. Just value your time, give yourself a proper wage.
Yeah.
And how do you cope with that negativity? So obviously someone's going to say, oh, Harry, can you make a cake for me? And you say, okay, what kind of design? You go through all the scoping and then you say, oh, it's this price. And then they turn back and go, yeah, either you get silent, so they ghost you.
Yeah.
Or there is a comment that can come back, which is like, why are cakes so expensive? Or, you know, it tends to be, in my experience and talking to other bakers, that there's a lot of negativity there as well. Like,
massive, yeah. The negativity is massive, yeah. So I don't actually get a lot of it in terms of pricing, which is really good, which is why I'd go back to people that, and I know loads of people, especially in my local area, we all recommend each other, especially when I don't take on a lot at the moment. I've got this advantage of having all these Instagram people that keep asking me for cake and I don't take on that much. So I just say, I've got a list of all the people in my local area and I send them to everyone. And I know the prices of everyone because I've asked, you know, because someone may come to me and say, oh, I've got a budget. And I wouldn't ever go, oh, you can't afford mine. But I know some local people that charge less or some people that charge more. And do know some people that charge way too little and their cakes are brilliant. And I just would love to just say, please just value your time, because I know they'll sell for whether you charge, I don't know, £70 for a tall 6-inch cake or you charge £120. You know, it's that difference. Someone's treating someone to this big extravagant cake is probably the gift. People will pay the money and you're actually getting paid a proper wage. So everyone wins.
Great advice. Really good advice.
Yeah, hourly wage. That's what, if I would go off on one of that, this is one of those things I can go on forever with. One thing you can take, just give yourself an hourly wage that is more than minimum wage at least.
Yeah.
it has to be sustainable, right? So, and to be enjoyable.
Well, like you said, you want to pay your mortgage doing this. You want this to, your goal is to get this to be a full-time gig and pay the mortgage, build yourself a lifestyle. You're not going to do that unless you value yourself properly and the time and the effort worth put in, for sure.
Great advice there, Harry. I just wanted to spend some time talking about how it feels to be a teacher. You're a guest tutor at Vic's Kitchen, right?
I am, yes.
How does that feel? Does it feel a bit surreal that you're now teaching cakes too? Can you tell us a bit about it?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's a bit mind-blowing for me, really, that people actually want to come to my class. I mean, done this 18 months now, well, a bit more than 18 months, and it's just baffling to me. And, I've got approached by Vic about running this class, and I love the idea. I've always wanted to, since I've found this way to do this, I'd love to teach people how to do it. It sounds great to me. And the class is sold out. I cannot believe that I sold out both these days. And the first date went like in days. It was madness. And the message I've had of people that are booked in these classes, they are buzzing. They love the idea of it. They're excited. And I'm sitting here still scratching my head like, why? But I am mad excited for it. I'm really, really excited. In fact, I'm actually going to do another date for that same class because the demand has just been incredible. So I'm running 2 dates at the moment, 16th of September and 9th of October. And both have gone. And I'm getting messages like, oh, I've missed out. Can you run another date? And I thought I was going to run a different class. I was going to run a kind of how can I word this about? I was going to run a class on how you just do like stacking, filling, and how to ice the perfect
The basics,
cake.
right? The basics.
Yeah, like that, yeah. So that was the next class I was going to run, which I wanted to do from the start. That was what I was going to do. And then demand for this the cake class I'm already doing, just became massive. So I thought, okay, well, let's put another date out for that. And then we'll worry about the basics later. I might still do the basics one. In fact, I probably am. But yeah, The Stripes want to get another date.
Maybe there's a place for them to both run in parallel, because there's always going to be new bakers wanting to learn the basics, and there's always going to be people wanting to learn your latest designs.
I think there's a fear that this stripe one is too advanced, which absolutely it's not. But people might want to just learn, just stacking and filling, and how people might get leaning cakes, or you might things seep out the side. It's just very, very basic stuff that people may struggle with for a long time. Would just really benefit from going to a class to just learn that basic stuff. And that was what the idea was for me, that I really wanted to do. And then just this, my current class just went a bit mad, and I couldn't not run another date. So that is coming. I'm just not bothering Vic while she's on holiday. So the date is coming. I need to not keep texting away with the kids.
Do share where people can find your class so that they're aware. It's Vic's Kitchen, correct?
Yes, that's where I'm teaching at the moment. Yeah, that's she's in Woking, which is 7 minutes from my house, which is amazing. I can just show up at her door and be like, "Excuse me, I'm back again. Can I take some photos in here?"
And so obviously she approached you about this a while back. What was your initial response?
She called me when I was on holiday, actually. I was in Paris with Rio and Harriet. And honestly, process with Vic was just like, "Oh, can we have a chat on the phone?" Like, yeah, cool. We chatted for about half an hour and it was done. It's incredible. Where she basically spoke me through it and asked what I wanted, and I sort of gave her a load of questions. I went into her studio for one meeting, one conversation. In fact, no, I wouldn't say meeting. We just met each other in her studio, had a can of Coke, talked through the equipment there, and went, "Right, let's get a date in the diary." That was it. That's how easy it is. She is like, you think I'm relaxed. She's even more relaxed than I am. That's how easy it was.
She obviously knows good talent when she sees them, Harry.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh, we're big fans of Vic anyway. We're huge fans, and she's... I love all her work that she does as well.
Yeah, she's fantastic. All right, well, Harry, listen, we're pretty much at the end of our time. So what we're going to do is tradition here on My Baking Journey is we do a little quick fire round of questions, Rachel and I. Just 4 questions. The first thing that comes to mind. So I'm going to go first. Question 1 is American buttercream or Swiss meringue?
American, all day.
American all day. Very good. All right.
One aspect of baking you won't compromise on.
I won't compromise on. Ooh, buttercream consistency has to be right.
Thought you might say that based on our conversation.
How about a baking book from the bookshelf?
Finch Girls.
Finch Girls. Okay.
The Finch Girls. Finch Bakery.
Finch Bakery, right?
Yeah. Excellent. Cool.
And Harry, who would you want to have make your next birthday cake?
That's really tricky, that one. Okay, let's go with Amy's Little Cakery, because she will make one that will basically stand on its own head and you could throw it around like anything, because I've never seen structures like it. So Amy all day.
Oh, fantastic.
Excellent. Thank you, Harry. That's amazing. Listen, that was a really good discussion. And even for somebody who has less experience than many bakers who are out there, you still have loads of great insight to provide and a very relaxed attitude, which is fantastic. It makes it very easy to just get information out of you. So thanks again so much for coming on board. This has been great.
No worries. Until the next time.
Yeah, until the next time.
Part 2, Harry. Part 2.
Yes, I'm here for it.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Take care, mate.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, right. So we just got off the phone with Harry. How great of a chat was that with somebody who's relatively very new to baking? I think that's really quite a great conversation with lots of insight.
Yeah, I think, what I loved about chatting to Harry is, although he's new to baking, he's obviously very well skilled. But I think the audience will take away from that some really key nuggets on social media, because I think Harry's shown us how you can grow through Instagram and TikToks and those kind of nuggets of working with brands and how his aspirations and dreams going forward.
Yeah, it's very true. And I think what's great is his very relaxed attitude has allowed him to walk into this with a little bit of naivety, but also with a bit of a mindset of, well, if things go bad, we can work around them. These are sort of hiccups along the way. But it's also, I think, allowed this creative freedom to appear because he hasn't shoehorned himself into having to do X, Y, and Z so much. And he's just learning as he goes along and left an open door and an open mind to it. So just to do things like, I think I could throw a cake in the air. These are crazy ideas which sometimes don't ever come out unless you've sort of let yourself go a bit and just not worry about the response or the reaction or things like that. So kudos to him for that, because he's a great guy to chat with about this.
Yeah, I just love Harry, and I think we'll be seeing lots more from him in the future as well.
Very true. Harry Bakes, thanks so much.
And that wraps up episode 2 of My Baking Journey, a podcast by OLBAA. Really hope you like that one. Check the show notes to learn more about Harry and where to follow him. And if you get a moment, please consider subscribing to this podcast from your favorite podcast app. You can rate us, and if you're feeling generous, leave us a review. We're back next week. But before I go, I just wanted to tell you this podcast is produced by the team at OLBAA. Who's OLBAA? Packaging for bakers, designed by a baker. You can learn more about us at olbaa.shop or check us out on Instagram or TikTok. Yes, we have a TikTok. See you next week. Take care.